Hello and welcome back to the Talking Tillies podcast. This is episode 2 of our Going for Gold focus in on the Olympics. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, also welcome. But we've got, I'm guessing, a fair few new ears joining us. So for those of you, maybe you're listening to the show for the first time, my name is Josh. I'm your host here. Who am I? Absolutely nobody. What do I know about football? Also very little. That's why I have the brains of Cody and Michelle here to help me stumble my way through these episodes. Cody, how are you? Long time no talk, my friend. What's going on in the world of you at the moment?
I just got back from Europe, which was absolutely fantastic. I got to see Haley Russo play in person at club level, which was pretty cool and very expensive. Not the game, the trip there and back, because turns out trains don't run to Huelva at that time, which sucks. But no, I'm doing good, assimilating back into cold weather, and probably wishing that the Olympics were on at a more suitable time because, even outside of football, like I want to get invested in everything. When the sports are on at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's very hard to do so.
We will touch on that in a second. Michelle, how have you been? What's going on in the world of you?
Yeah, good. I've spent this off season watching Pokemon.
As every good football fan does.
That's
Euros,
about it.
no. Copa America, no. Pokemon, yes.
I was watching the Copa America, to be fair.
Great game. Probably the better of the two finals. That was this morning when we recorded this. But we are here to talk about...
I want to disagree with that statement.
Yeah, but you've got...
Yeah, but you don't count.
Thanks.
Colonizer.
Welcome back. All right. Now, what we are going to do, guys, we're just going to go back to the end of last episode because it has been a couple of weeks and obviously we've got some new people probably listening into the show. So we just wanted to step you through how this tournament is actually going to work so everybody's on the same page. So when we're talking about things, you know exactly where it works out in the whole scheme of this tournament. So Cody, do you want to run us through how Olympic football works?
So essentially it starts at the group stage. Each team plays every other team in the group a total of one time. Not technically a round robin, but of the ilk, I guess is probably the best way that you could put it. Either way, you play everyone in your team once. Top 2 go straight through to the quarterfinals, and then the 2 best third place teams also go through as well. They'll go to a knockout stage of 8 teams, and then as traditional knockout football works, you keep playing until you lose, until eventually someone is crowned with a gold medal. Or, in this case, the Matildas are crowned with a gold medal, if I want to get a little bit arrogant.
Manifesting energy. As long as we don't start singing It's Coming Home, Cody, we're okay.
Don't worry, I won't be singing that. I've heard that enough in the last few days. It's coming. I wish there was a Spanish town off the top of my head that was really popular that rhymed with home, but I don't think so.
There we go. All right, so that's how this tournament is actually going to work that we're stepping into. But we thought this episode we kind of take a step back. Usually we would deep dive into all things Australia, but there are some other incredible teams playing in this tournament that is going to make it a very difficult one for the Matildas to win. I will err on the side of sitting on the fence. Cody can dive straight in as he usually does, and Michelle will probably have reserved judgments, but we'll come to that as we go through. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in Group A. So there's 4 teams in each group, 3 groups, and that's how it all works. So let's start in Group A. So France are the head of the group here. They are the host country. And honestly, on paper, very solid team. Top to bottom, top names, really, really strong on paper. How do you see these guys? How do you see France coming out of this group, Michelle? What do you like from the look of their squad, and how do you see them progressing through the group stage?
Yeah, look, they're such a good team. We know what they can do. Obviously, we had the pleasure of facing them in the World Cup. So yeah, very good team. It looks pretty standard. I think there's no I guess no real surprises for me, I suppose.
I would say no big omissions for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not too well versed in French football, but yeah, it looks like a really solid team. I do think, they will get out of the group stage. Maybe not quite easily, but I think they will definitely be able to get out of the group stage.
Cody, how much does that home crowd have an effect on the Olympics, do you think? Like we saw with Matildas during the World Cup, do you reckon France will have the same thing in their backyard for the women's game through this tournament?
I'd be surprised if they didn't. I know the Federation has put in a lot of effort for both the men's and women's team to really make sure that there is some level of success coming out of these tournaments. And even it felt like the moment Herve Renard came in, the World Cup was almost like a precursor to the Olympics as well, which I guess does make sense considering they are both senior worldwide tournaments. It's not necessarily an offensive thing to say or using the World Cup as a stepping stone in that regard. Marie Antoinette Kototo, from memory, wasn't at the World Cup. Probably a big inclusion coming into this tournament as well. Just an added bit of pace up front. Another level of dynamism that can go into that front line. Something that we unfortunately didn't get to see in our country, but we'll see in full flight, hopefully, in this tournament. How do they go in this group? I don't think you can make any real big calls just simply because of the sheer quality that's going around this tournament. But you're talking about a country that's playing in front of their own home fans. They're in their own country. Obviously, they're not in a position where they're sleeping in their own beds or anything like that, but they're in familiar surrounds. They've got their own their own culture around them. All those little psychological 5%ers are going to play a massive part. So, surface level, I wouldn't be surprised if they run deep into this tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if they top this group. Is it straightforward? No, but it's something that I can see happening. This tournament was played 10 times. I'd pick it 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, 100%. Moving to a team that we have seen a lot of in the last 12 months, and that's Canada. Pretty much our go-to team for anything warm-up or friendly at the moment. Obviously, this is kind of that first major tournament for Canada post the kind of changing of the guard, with a lot of their older, more experienced players retiring and passing through. Obviously, we saw them in the friendly during the week for the Matildas warm-up game. Cody, what do you think of this Canadian roster, and how do you think they're going to do post Sinclair and everybody else that has passed on?
I think they were hitting a time where they did need a little bit of change, a little bit of that kind of youthful exuberance. With that, though, comes teething issues. Obviously, the last World Cup didn't go too well for them. Went very well for us, thankfully, in that regard. But I don't think there's going to be a thing of they're going to come out, everything's just going to be all sunshine and roses again. It'll probably take 1 or 2 match tournaments before you really see this side in full flight. I don't think it means that they'll have an unsuccessful tournament or they go out in the group stage. There's every chance that 3 teams from this group could go through. There's a very realistic chance Canada could end up being one of them. Having Colombia in there as well, I'm sure we're going to be talking about very, very soon. It does make things a little bit harder because Colombia look like the side that they've got are almost hitting their peak as a squad. So when you've got a side in that kind of position compared to Canada, where there has been a bit of turnover in the last 12 months, it does make things a little bit difficult for them. But I don't think it'll be a bad side. They'll go out there, they'll play good football. From the friendlies they've played with Australia, especially the one that was played recently, obviously a game like that behind closed doors, not a full international. Maybe they were just trying a few things out. I don't think they overly impressed me. I think the Matildas just had a bit of a lackluster performance more than anything. But you've still got a few players in there that can cause some damage. You've got Adriana Leon, Jordan Huitema, probably to a lesser extent up front, Kadisha Buchanan at the back. There's good players there that'll still spur this side on. Chloe Lacasse as well. They'll have something to say in this tournament. How much that is, I don't know. But I'm definitely not writing them off. I'll say that much.
100%. Michelle, any thoughts on Canada?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had 3 friendlies against them recently. The games that we played against them in Canada, they were very good, and we did not look very good. I'm not. I'm going to be honest. I did not get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch this random behind closed doors B International rolling subs game. I was not bothered, and I needed to sleep because I got home late that night. But yeah, look, Canada is always a good team. Remember, these guys did win gold at the last Olympics, and yeah, like Cody said, you can never write this team off. I think they've definitely learnt a lot from the World Cup. And I think from there, coming into this tournament, I think they're going to, I believe that they will probably be a lot scarier than what we saw at the World Cup.
Yeah, I think there's almost that chip on the shoulder too, because as soon as they crashed out of the groups, there was the first team to ever win gold at the Olympics and then not make it through the groups of the World Cup and that type of media coverage. So hopefully they come out swinging, and it's a different tournament this time around for Canada. Cody, you mentioned Colombia. We've just seen their men's side go all the way through the finals of the Euros of Copa
What?
America. Sorry, that was merging two tournaments together. Headed by Linda Caicedo here. What excites you about this Colombian team? We saw them kind of make a few waves here or there through the World Cup, playing a really exciting brand of football. Does that continue to the Olympics, and how much of a difference does making this short team kind of format?
First of all, what excites me about this team, 2 words that you've already mentioned, Linda Caicedo. Genuinely, world football, men, women's, she's genuinely probably up there with like my top 5 favorite players to watch in general. Absolutely fantastic baller. Classic, that kind of early 2000s style of flair that, maybe we're not seeing as much of in football anymore. I still every now and then think back to seeing that goal she scored against Germany. I got almost a perfect view of that, and it's still one of my favorite footballing memories that I've managed to gather in my life. But this side generally is a fun side to watch, even outside of her, Catalina Osme, Daniela Montoya, just those names that genuinely put in a good performance at the World Cup that will be good to kind of see at a major tournament again. Just in general, this side's a lot of fun. A little bit of a classic South American side. They play the game with, how do I say it? Just an essence of, they go out there. It's not just about trying to win and set up perfectly tactically, but there is an element of wanting to excite a crowd as well. I love teams like that. And and I kind of mentioned it before, I do think this is a side that's kind of hitting their peak in terms of where they kind of sit in, especially South American football, but I think to an element world football as well. I don't want to say they're going to be one of the favourites in this tournament, but they've got a very good chance of being top 2 in this group. I can definitely see it happening, and I'd put myself out there to predict it too. I think it's if people aren't aware of what this side's about yet, I think they're going to surprise that group of people. But anyone that watched the World Cup knows this side's capable of doing a lot of damage. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how far they can go in this tournament as well.
It's going to be very interesting to see how they come out swinging. Does that Colombian flair take them out of the groups, Michelle? What do you think of this squad here?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I know we've spoken about the World Cup a lot. In my opinion, I don't think that that's like, it was last year. It was different circumstances, a different, setting, different tournament. There's a lot of different factors. I think Colombia has good players, and I think that they were so fun at the World Cup, but also like they shocked everyone at the World Cup, right? It wasn't like we were expecting them to do well to begin with. So for them to get as far as they did was awesome. For them to play as well as they did, like I think in the Copa America as well, was not super surprising to me. I think like their performance like in the Copa America was like, okay, like this is what we're expecting. Or it was like, there was like there was games going on, right? Anyways, so yes, I do think that they will be tough, but I think it's like they play such a different style to what European football and North American football is. Obviously, like every continent's going to have different styles, but I don't know how well it's going to do against Canada, against France. New Zealand, with all my love to New Zealand and our fellow Kiwis, and we can talk about them in a bit. I think Colombia, that's probably going to be a game that they're going to look at. That's going to be like, okay, we have to get the 3 points from this game.
Yeah.
They're not going to say it's easy, obviously not. But yeah, I assume we'll do our predictions later for
Yeah.
for the group. But yeah, like if they play in that Galaxy kit, then I'll be happy.
Absolute chef's kiss there. If you don't know what Michelle just mentioned, go check out our Instagram. It is up there under the Group A tab. I guess what you're trying to say, Michelle, as well, it's like now is their time to prove that they can perform at that level. Like it wasn't a one-off kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all good to come in and be that kind of wonder team, but if you're going to back it up, back it up. Let's do it. Moving across the ditch to a team that probably is just going to be there to cause upsets. The good old Kiwis, the Ferns from across the way. We'll start with you, Michelle, on here. I think the big thing out of here, no Hannah Wilkinson up front. One of those surprise omissions that we alluded to at the top there. And it looked like she wasn't really consulted on the omission either from her reaction on social media. What do you think of her being left out? And does that put a dent in their potential hopes, or was it time to move on?
Hard to say. I mean, she was scoring at City, but probably not as much as she should be as a striker, I think. I think it does kind of suck considering like she like I can see like again we're talking about the World Cup here, like she scored that first goal for New Zealand that kind of like really changed things for them, but again like you can't look at that tournament and like use that. I mean you can look at a lot of things but the emotions are so high in those games. You know, they were playing in New Zealand in an opening game of a World Cup. Like that was huge. And I think like the Kiwis in that moment, it was like, we have to do everything that we can to win this game. And I'm not saying that like they will have a different mindset of like in the Olympics. I mean, it will be different in the sense that like we're not doing this in front of our home fans. We're now doing this in another country, you know, kilometers away from home, you know, in a different time zone and whatever. And I think as well, the squad looks very young, very like quite inexperienced, like as a unit. I did find it interesting that India Page Riley and Ellie Green were both selected. Just two names that like I haven't seen really thrown around heaps in the national team as of late. Ali missed out on the World Cup call up, and I know that she was pretty happy to be selected for this Olympics, which is still huge. But yeah, I just thought it was an interesting squad. I think a bit of a different squad than maybe what people are used to.
Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this is the thing that kind of turns their tide on the national stage, take it that one step further. Cody, some exciting names here. Another person that you likened to having the flair, I think, during the season of Linda Caicedo in Macy Fraser making the cut here. What are your opinions on this squad and how do you like the look of this?
Yeah, look, I don't know if I put Macy Fraser in the same category as Linda Caicedo. I just want to get that out there. But look, stylistically, she's
go out on the ledge, Cody. Say something controversial.
I'm not here to do controversial stuff, man. you know that very, very well. But no, I don't know. This side, I think I don't know if they've maybe overthought it a little bit. I can't remember if Jimta Jack, I don't know how to pronounce her name, I'll be honest, but the previous Ferns head coach picked the side before she walked, or if it was selected afterwards. But I think to a certain extent, I feel like they've overthought a few decisions. Having Hannah Wilkinson not in there, I understand maybe stylistically she can be difficult to kind of go, okay, yep, this is the sort of style we're going to play, and you need to kind of assimilate to that. She's very much target player, get the ball to her, score. But when you're
pass it to the big lad,
pretty much. But when you're a side that is going to have very, very few chances in this tournament, it's because you're playing three quality sides that, with as little disrespect as possible, are of another level in terms of technical quality to your team. You kind of want someone that you can go, okay, if we give her one chance in a game, there's a chance that she'll score it. You saw it with City as well. She has moments where she'll dip in and out of the match. She'll ghost a little bit, maybe even for 2 or 3 matches at a time. And then bang, she'll score, bang, she'll score, bang, she'll score. She just needs those opportunities to at least work herself into a game. And if she can work herself into a game, she's a quality striker. So even if it's someone that you just bring off the bench, it's like, okay, look, we need a goal. Let's just see what we can do. Throw her up front, get her on the ball, give her a go, because she's a great finisher. I think that's the biggest thing that you can say about it. So to have that not in your squad at all and not have that to be able to rely on, even as a backup, I think that's just a little bit surprising. I think they've gone too into, okay, we need some people that are going to fit a certain style. But
Do you think... Sorry, I was going to say, do you think, though, that, like, is that not a bit of a risk to, like, have a player that's, like, you know, might hit a goal, you know, 1 every 5 times that she gets a chance or something?
I mean, I'd rather have a player that's known for finishing than players that are there to play a certain style of football but don't have that quality in front of goal that Hannah Wilkinson has. It's going to be a risk either way. For me, though, not having Hannah Wilkinson there is probably a bigger risk to having her there, because if New Zealand crash out of this tournament without scoring a goal, the first thing that a lot of people will say, and I know it's going to be the first thing I say, why wasn't Hannah Wilkinson selected? Yeah. If New Zealand go into this tournament and what whoever's looking after it, obviously Michael Main's in there now, whoever's looking after it or what Michael Main's vision is comes alive and it works well, that's a risk that's paid off. I will be the first person to say, yep, you know what, well done, they've made the right call there. At the end of the day, you don't know if you made the right call until said call has been seen in action. But not having her there, I think there's got to be, I know it's only an 18-player squad, but I do think she's the sort of player you make room for. I'm a little bit, maybe to a lesser extent, I'm a little bit surprised Michaela Foster wasn't in the main squad. I've just really enjoyed watching her. She's got a wicked left foot on her, and I know she adds something going forward, and I think New Zealand, the way they're going to be playing this tournament, they are going to be having to create a lot of chances from deep, and that's something that's right up her alley. Does she get in ahead of the likes of Ali Green, Ali Riley? Maybe it's a touch too much to ask for, but I think that's a quality player that you could have even had in there as a backup as well. But saying that, I don't know who I take out for her, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. Even Claudia Bunge, like, she's made a move into professional football, was playing well when she was playing here. The players that are ahead of her, Michaela Moore, Mackenzie Barry, Kate Taylor, I don't think she's worse than them. Whether people prefer having Barry and Taylor in there, I don't know. I know Taylor probably could have even gone as a midfielder and you take an extra defender, and that player being Bunge. But yeah, I don't know if they've maybe overthought a few decisions in regards to how they want to set up and go, okay, we need a certain type of player instead of trying to take their best 18.
Time will tell. We are just a couple of weeks away from their first game. So that is Group A on a wrap. Lots of things to think about. And we're going to go straight into Group B to one of our, again, fresh coaches. Emma Hayes taking control of the United States team for her first major tournament at the helm, and instantly making some big calls. On paper, really great team. Alex Morgan, the omission here that I was a little shocked about. It looks like Alex was a little disappointed as well from her reaction on socials. This looks like it's a proper changing of the guard for the United States team now. Emma Hayes comes in, pretty much cleans house, and hits the reset button here. I mean, much needed after the World Cup that they did have, and we keep coming back to the World Cup because that was the last thing that we saw. But Cody, how important is this for Emma to get off to a good start as the head coach, but also to kind of start fresh on a lot of these young, really talented players coming into the squad and getting their chances to fully nail down their positions going forward to the next kind of cycle?
I don't know if it's of massive importance for Emma Hayes, but the reality is this is her first tournament. She hasn't exactly been in the role for an overly large amount of time. I think she's only had a couple games with them. I'd be shocked if she turns around and things are clicking like that instantly. I believe they've performed well in their own confederation between the World Cup and now, which, you know, they're a leader in CONCACAF. They really should be one of the standout teams there, just in general. But I'm not going to sit here and say, like, if they don't come away with gold or if they don't make the final, like, Emma Hayes has failed. I think what fans
Fraud.
should be. I think, look, honestly, the biggest thing that I think fans should be looking for from this team is just a clear. I don't want to say change, because at the end of the day, I think the main thing that people expect with the USA is success, and however it comes. I think that's the main thing that USA fans want to look for. But I think if you see a team that does come out with a bit of a fresh look, that does play with that same kind of passion that you saw from the US 5-10 years ago, and just a clear improvement to what I guess we saw from the World Cup. Like, I know I'm tracking back to that again, and I know there's been performances in there that did look very different. But when the USA was even going up against a side like Portugal, they seem to lack a bit of creativity in their front third. It's a lot easier to break down a side like Panama, like Haiti, where you got less players playing at that professional level. You got less players in professional world-class environments. But when you're going up against sides that are of a higher quality, you do need to step up in a different way. This is probably the first chance to see, like, okay, we've got Emma Hayes in now. There's a fresh look. You'll want to see that spark going forward. I think that's probably the biggest thing that USA fans should be looking for in this tournament. Whether that comes in the form of, yep, we're going to blow teams off the park and we're going to go on a really deep run, or whether it's, okay, we're going to have a few close games, there's going to be teething issues, but that clear change in style is there. I don't know. I reckon if it's going to be anything, it's going to be the latter. And as honestly, if you can see the latter, I think there's good signs for Emma Hayes moving forward and something to build on at least.
They said it in their Netflix documentary, Michelle. They're not the best in the world anymore. And I think the exciting thing for this is we're actually going to get to see Mal Swanson at a major tournament. I think she did her ACL just before the World Cup and didn't make the journey as a part of the squad. So it looks like that creativity up front, barring any injuries between now and the start of the Olympics, should hopefully be in play. Just an amendment, if you're following along on our socials, Katerina Macario has herself done an ACL in the time that we posted this, and Lynn Williams is coming in to replace her. So there's a nice little A-League thread there. Michelle, what is your thoughts on the US? What is the minimum bar they need to hit to feel okay with any performance in the Olympics?
Oh, it's hard to say. Like Cody said, like, this is Emma Hayes' first tournament, and it'll be really the first like indicator of how they stack up against these other teams, right? So I think for them, obviously they'll say, anything less than silver is probably failure, in their opinion. But I think realistically, like, getting to maybe bronze medal match or, to a quarterfinal, semi-final vibe, I think that's probably a spot that I'd expect them to get to. I think they've played really well under Emma Hayes from their few games that they've had. So, yeah, I do. I mean, I'm not like expecting huge from them. Obviously, like, they haven't played many games. But I do think that with the team that they have, it's still a very good team. And a very fun team to watch. So I think that they will surprise. I think if US fans are thinking they're going to win gold, I think maybe it's time to reel in the expectations a bit. But I don't think anyone is thinking that, to be honest. I think, this is probably the first time that US fans or women's football fans are looking at this US team thinking, I don't think they're going to win the whole thing.
Interesting. Speaking of another team that had a dreadful World Cup by their standards, they've put them all into one group, which makes it easy for us to cover. But Germany bowed out in the groups as well of the World Cup. They've come back bigger and stronger in their squad as well. It looks like, again, another really, and this is the thing, all these squads just look really stacked on paper. And as kind of that neutral fan that I am that don't really know much about individual players, this team looks really, really good on paper. Cody, what do you think of this German squad? They did just have, I think, a 3-0 loss to Poland or something in their last UEFA Nations group game. I will double check who it actually was, but is that a stumble before the next big tournament that they should worry about, or do you reckon they'll be able to shake it off going into that first game against us in a couple of weeks?
Iceland. They beat Poland
Iceland.
3-1 and 4-1 a couple of weeks before. They also beat Iceland 3-1 before that. So it's just a bit of a mix-up. Spain did lose to Czech Republic recently as well. So I think there's just a lot of that kind of mid-tier European nations really starting to make a name for themselves. And Iceland do have a history in the women's game as well. So they're not really a team to look down on and say, oh, that's a bad loss. They're also playing in Reykjavik, which I don't know much about Icelandic football, but I'm sure traveling from Poland to Iceland isn't always the easiest thing to do, especially when Iceland is so isolated and far away from everything. If there's one thing I know about Iceland as a country, it is that.
And
But
if you learned anything from Mighty Ducks, it's green and Greenland is covered in ice. Anyway.
yeah, that's also true. I keep forgetting about that part, that Greenland does exist because they are a little bit irrelevant. Sorry to any listeners that we may have from Nook. But I don't know. I don't know if I'd sit there and say like, oh, it's alarm bells ringing. We should be okay now. If the Iceland can beat them, we can beat them, because Germany can then turn around and put in a 5-star performance against us and make us look stupid. They're look, for all their inconsistencies, I do think that this is still going to be a strong side. You look at their record between the World Cup and now, because I know a lot of people, their first start will be the World Cup where they got knocked out in the group stage. They've only lost 1, 2, 3 games in that time, in the space of 12 months. And they've played a fair bit of football. And the teams that they're playing as well, Denmark, France, to a maybe slightly lesser extent Iceland, it's still quality nations. So you're not talking like they've had a really poor run of games or anything like that. They've beaten Netherlands in that time. They've beaten Denmark in that time. They've beaten Iceland 3 times in that time as well. So Germany's always got a strong side, no matter how they go into a tournament, even considering their good form. Once they get there, they're not a team that you scoff at. It's Germany. Their name in football carries so much weight. And even on the women's side of things, they're still a big side and one to keep an eye on. I'd be shocked if they go and have another terrible tournament. They want to make amends from the World Cup. They look like for the last 12 months they've been preparing themselves to do well at this tournament. I'd be shocked if they come and put on a stinker against us. I think that first match as well, they'll want to make a statement. We're going to be up against it big time. They also have a game between now and when they play us. They play Austria very soon. So yeah, I think that'll be another one to keep an eye out on to see how they come out of that Iceland game, because when they're not facing us off the back of that Iceland game, they've got one more match to make amends and tidy things up.
Now, for those people that maybe are listening to the show for the first time, Michelle, I don't know why I didn't do this with any other nations, but are there any names here that people should kind of look out for that we probably will hear the commentators say a couple of times in that game against us, at least in that first game of the Olympics for us? Anyone here that, not that we should be scared of, but we should kind of have that little tag on them being like, hey, watch this person?
I mean, I think there's a fair few on this team. I think Alex Pop and Lena Oberdorf, Sydney Lohman, even goalkeeper and Katrin Berger, like, these are players who are playing in top clubs, playing high-level football, who are very talented. I remember speaking to Lena Oberdorf after their their draw against South Korea in the World Cup that eventually knocked them out of the tournament. And when we were kind of talking about, like, I guess what was the issue essentially in this tournament, and she said we can't just keep passing it to Alex Pop. We need to be able to step in as well, and we need to be able to create those chances and to be in those positions to score goals. So I think, yes, the World Cup was an absolute stinker of a performance. It was not good at all, considering who they are. So I think, yeah, like Cody said, they're going to come out to this first game really looking to make a statement, especially after a loss against Iceland. yes, Iceland is, a decent team. There's no denying, where they stand, and it's not easy to go to where they are. But in terms of rankings, in terms of who qualified for the World Cup, like in terms of who Germany is, like that's a team that should be beating Iceland. That's a team that should be going on to win a World Cup, on paper at least. So yeah, I think for me, like two of the biggest names on that team have to be Lena Oberdorf and Alex Pop. Like at the end of the day, they're two very notable names.
Just on that, with Iceland, I know FIFA rankings can be dubious. They're in the top 15 in the world, so
Mm.
they are up there. And from memory, I think they were, if they weren't the top team, they were at least one of them. I'm pretty sure they were the highest ranked side that didn't actually make the World Cup as well.
They have also
So
qualified for the Euros.
yeah, they're a good side. But one thing I want to mention on Germany that leads from what you said. I think I can't remember who you said made those comments about Alex Pop that you can't always rely on her.
Lena Oberdorf.
But Lena Oberdorf. But between the World Cup and now, Pop's only scored 1 goal for the national team, and Germany haven't exactly scored few goals. They've scored a lot. So there's clearly a shift where some other players are stepping up, and that load's been shared around, and there's evidence of it coming into this tournament.
It's kind of like the opposite of what we were just talking about with New Zealand. Germany have just figured it out before a major tournament. New Zealand are going to try and figure it out at a major tournament.
But that's like the ideal situation, right?
Yeah.
There's a problem. You go back to the training grounds, you fix the problem, and then you present it on the field, and it works. Like they've kind of like actually done what you're supposed to do.
I'll pitch this to you guys now. I was going to save it for later, but do you think the competitive nature of the Nations League is going to expedite the growth and development of the European teams far quicker now than a lot of like these outlying federations? Like having to play every friendly competitively is going to kind of obviously allow you to work out a fair few more kinks, and the way that Nations League is set up kind of does pit that best against the best. Otherwise, you're playing against the rest. So what do you think on that, Cody? Like, is this the kind of not regeneration, but really takeover of European football when it comes to the women's side of the game, where we've seen it majorly in North America?
I don't think it's just the Nations League, but I think it's evident of a much larger, concise effort to promote and invest in the women's game. I think if there's one thing that UEFA have done really well, it's actually put the women's game a little bit more in line with the men's. So they play, if it's not a carbon copy, it's still very similar. Their qualifying structure for both the World Cup and the Euros, they make sure they're actually playing proper round-robin formats. Not just this silly little group stage that's done in a hub in one international break every 2 years or something stupid like that. Every international window, they've got something on, they've got commitments. And that comes from UEFA turning around and actually investing in putting out the money to put these competitions on and put these qualifiers on to make sure that even the smallest teams in Europe get some form of development in competitive football. That's something the AFC in particular don't do very well. The AFC, I could go on all day about how they treat women's football because it's borderline shocking. But
Borderline.
not just that, but there's it's genuinely shocking. But I think there's also the added bonus that there is billions of dollars that circulates through European football, and now I'm not saying women's football gets its fair share, but it's getting a lot more of a share than what it did 15, 20 years ago. And the more money that keeps getting put in for them, the further the growth of the game is going to accelerate over there. So it's probably more of a sociocultural thing that is happening in Europe rather than just, they've put on the Nations League. But it's an example of a much larger, concise effort to what's going on, I guess.
Yeah. Michelle, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think, when you stop having games done as friendlies and actually make them competitive and a reason to play for them, you're going to see better development. And one thing that absolutely frustrates me is that the qualifiers that we do for the World Cup, they are the Asia Cup, and in South America, it's the Copa America. So it's like, what frustrates me about this is that anything can happen in a tournament. Look at Germany, right? Like, it's not set up in a way to be properly competitive to actually qualify for a tournament. You know, like, we've seen that with these Olympic qualifiers, right? Like, I think we can do Olympic qualifiers, but for some reason we cannot do World Cup qualifiers. You know, you look at how the men do it. Like, they do them over a 3-year period. Like, their friendlies are a lot less frequent. I feel like all we do is play friendlies, and they're meaningless games that mean nothing. And that's how you just end up handing out caps to everyone.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, to be capping more players. It just means that it feels less competitive to, one, the actual standard of football, and two, like, for the players who are on the team. You know, like, if you're selected for the national team, you should realistically be playing at the highest level, at your peak level. You know, it shouldn't just be, oh, you had a good game, a good few games, you should come play for the national team. You know, like, I know that's not normally how it is, and I know a lot of countries don't do it that way, but it does set up that sort of precedent that it's like, all right, like, it's a friendly, like, it's just a friendly.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, yes, obviously it goes towards those FIFA rankings, but again, like Cody mentioned, like, they can be a bit weird and they don't really mean much at the end of the day. I mean, North Korea is in the top 10 and they've played like one game. So, you know, like, I think we need to, like, the AFC, CONMEBOL, CONCACAF, like, everyone needs to start changing the format of how we do women's international breaks.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's exactly what I was trying to get to. So thank you for getting around that little side hustle. Coming back to our squad, that has some injury clouds around it. We all know who's been selected. I'm guessing if you follow the Matildas, or if you're listening to our show, I'm guessing you follow the Matildas and know who's in the squad. If not, just go check out the post. Give it a like while you're there. And if you don't follow us, follow us. Hey, snuck that in real quick. So, Catley, Torpy, Ford, injury cloud. Hoping everything's going to be okay. Ford pulled out of the friendly during the week with, I think it was thigh tightness or something like that. Thigh or calf tightness, something in a leg. I think Steph and Caitlin were out with lower leg injuries as well. It seems to happen right before a major tournament, doesn't it, guys? Like, we wrap them in cotton wool and we still find a way to put a question mark around the fitness level of the squad. Obviously, Catley's probably I mean, depending on what Caitlin's is as well, but Steph and Caitlin, if those two kind of don't heal themselves in time for Germany, is there a worry, Cody?
Look, we've got, I don't know, I'd back a couple of the alternate players that we have. I think Charlotte Grant, if Steph Catley's injured, you've got a ready-made replacement, even if it's not at that level. Catley obviously being one of our best players and up there with the best in the world in her position. But you've got a reliable replacement there. So we have this issue all the time, I guess. Like you said, you're going to a major tournament, there's 3 or 4 players going in under injury clouds. We also have the added effect that we don't have Sam Kerr to kind of rely on in a way. But I don't know, I think a few of those were just precautionary anyway. I'd be surprised if Caitlin Ford's actually missing any football. Looks like she was training properly today as well. So I think there's not much to worry about there. I wouldn't be too worried. At the end of the day, look, I'm arrogant enough. I'm gonna back whoever's pulling on a green gold jersey. But I think we'll be alright. There's a lot of players that are. There's only probably 3 or 4 players that I look at and go, if we lose them now, like, we're in serious danger. Catley and Ford probably being 2 of them, but Catley, I think if there's a position in the alternates that we have covered really, really well, it's the fullbacks. And Caitlin Ford, I think, is purely precaution. I think we'll be alright in that regard. So I don't have too many worries, if I'm being honest.
Now, Michelle, I know you're going to say it was just a friendly. But the replacement for Caitlin Ford in the friendly was Sian Fryer, and she did put the ball in the back of the net. a lot of people were commenting on our episode 1 of this series that, damn, we went in hard on Sian Fryer when we were talking about her inclusion in the squad. Does that performance ease any, not stress, but doubt at all for you in camp?
Look, to score against Canada is obviously huge, so it's always a bonus. But look, like I said, I did not watch the game. I was not bothered to watch this game. So I can't tell you what I thought of the goal. I should have watched it back, honestly, by this point. But some of us are lazy and have jobs and have other things that I need to do. But anyways,
I've seen it. She played well. She's an alternate player. I think I mentioned this on the last episode. I'm not gonna cause a fuss over an alternate player, but if a purpose of the alternate player by the looks of things, if someone's injured during the tournament, they're able to just come in on a match by match basis anyway.
Yeah.
So if that's what she's gonna do when she's coming in to replace someone, I'm not gonna have any issues at all. I'm pretty open about my mind being changed if someone comes in and does well. I made it clear that she probably wasn't my first preference, but like I said, I wasn't gonna argue it to the hills. But if that's the level that she's going to play at, if she's going to come in, she's going to score goals, and she's going to be a genuine threat going forward, I'm not going to complain. That's a good thing. That's fantastic.
As I said in the comments responding to everybody, it's more a gauntlet thrown down. Like, come prove us wrong, Sian. We're not here hating on you. We're just kind of sharing our opinions. And if you prove us wrong, we'll sit here and fall on our sword. And God hope you do. Michelle, any other thoughts on your final thoughts on the squad going towards the Olympics?
Look, like I said before, I think it's a genuinely it's a good squad. It's pretty solid. I am worried about the injuries, and I'm worried about how quickly they're picking them up. Because we only have so many replacements and so many positions that people can play. I think Charlie Grant is obviously great player, and I think she can easily fill either side of that role. So I think she'll be fine. Ellie's probably not going to get injured. Knock on wood. But yeah, I think from what I heard about the game as well, Mackenzie Arnold probably didn't have the best game. So hopefully she kind of just gets it all out now, and she can have a World Cup performance again. But yeah, like I said, it's a pretty standard squad. Nothing to really complain about. With the injuries, I do worry about how far we can go, just purely based on the injury front.
Fair. Now to a team that I know absolutely nothing about, so I'm hoping one of you can educate me. And that's Zambia. I know. I think, is it Barbara Banda is the one to look out for?
Yeah, pretty much.
I believe so. Yeah. Do we have any other thoughts on Zambia? I'm guessing none of us follow WAFCON too closely.
Look, if I look purely at their results, they've won a lot of games between the World Cup and now. They did beat Costa Rica at the World Cup as well. However much you want to read into that, I don't know. A lot of their wins have come against lower level African sides. Like, you're talking your Angolas, you're talking your Comoroses. Their games against Mali got cancelled. They did lose to Malawi towards the end of last year. But I think, look, the main thing I'd say about them, as much as it's probably a side that you look at and go, yeah, there's probably not much about them. They did beat Morocco to get here. We do know Morocco's got a bit of decent quality about them. So, once again, I don't think you want to take them lightly. Like, at the end of the day, it's the Olympics. Anyone can come up and pull up a surprise. So, I wouldn't take anyone lightly. They did draw to New Zealand recently as well, if that's of note.
I think all of Australia underestimated the last African nation that we had in our group.
Yeah, let's not.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
How are you going to underestimate Nigeria?
Yeah. Probably one of the best African nations out there at the moment in Nigeria. We'll talk about them in a second. But anything to add on Zambia here, Michelle?
Oh, I'm constantly terrified of African teams because you just never know what you're going to get. Like, they can be We can either see what we saw at the 2019 World Cup, where they just stopped the game, or they can be like Nigeria and be an absolute powerhouse and just like dominate all the time. So I'm excited to see them play. I think it'll be fun, and I think we will probably struggle against Zambia. I'm not going to lie.
All right. Let's move on to, that's 2 groups down. Final group, and probably, in my opinion, the toughest group of this tournament. I would hate to have drawn this group. Starting off with the World Cup champions in Spain. New coach, new mindset, new vibes. Let's hope. I'm guessing they're going for a medal and not have it surrounded in controversy so they can actually celebrate it this time. Cody, you've been celebrating all day today on one side of Spanish football. How do you see the other side going at this Olympics?
Yeah, look, if France don't get the gold, Spain's probably my next pick. They're a fantastic side. They play beautiful football in terms of just the general team structure and how they're going to go into a tournament. They're probably well and truly the favourites. I think France being at home does give them a little bit of an edge, but other than that, Spain, in reality, they're going in as World Cup champions. They're by far the team to beat. I don't think anything between the World Cup and now has changed enough drastically for people to go, okay, yeah, no, this still isn't a side that I'm going to trust. And there's a few players, I believe, that have actually come back into the side since that have made them stronger. So you're talking about when they were playing at the World Cup, they were absolutely fantastic. Yeah, they had that one game against Japan where things kind of fell by the wayside. But other than that, they were fantastic. So,
but to be fair, Japan also bowled out in that game as
Japan
well.
in general are a fantastic team.
We're about to talk about in a second.
So it's not really something that I'm going to sit there and go, oh, that's really, really bad. I say it about every major tournament Spain plays against Japan. Japan, as a country, are set up to perfectly settle Spain down and actually shut them down, but probably better than any other country in the world, which is probably the only thing that worries me about this group for Spain. But other than that, they're a fantastic side. Like I said, they're the team to beat.
Women's Player of the Year pretty much all around the world. But Marty is going to lead this Spanish side. Michelle, what are you excited for out of these girls to come to this tournament and just kind of ball out? Because I'm guessing that's what they're going to do. I can't see them doing anything else. What excites you about this squad? On paper, it's top to bottom. But outside of those big names, what are you excited for out of this Spanish squad?
Oh, I mean, like we said, they're the world champions, right? And it'll be a massive achievement for them to win gold after winning the World Cup. Man, could you imagine if they won the Euros as well? Like
international treble.
If they did Euros, World Cup, Olympics, that would be
Has that ever
huge.
been done before?
We gave England a run that tournament too.
You did, yeah. But they didn't make it to the final. So
I mean, we did lose to the eventual winner. I think
but you didn't make it to the final. Like
I'm not
you were never going to win the tournament if you didn't make it to the final.
Yeah, but the only reason why we didn't make it to the final is because we played the eventual winner.
Yeah, but they almost did not win either.
That's fair enough.
You know. And then Germany had a World Cup to forget. Anyways, yes, I mean, on paper, this side is probably the best team. I think Spain is just absolutely getting football right everywhere, as we just saw with the men as well. So, yeah, I think what's more interesting to see is how, because obviously there's a new coach around, and I'd be interested to see how they're going to play. Is it going to be much different? Obviously, they've had games that I haven't seen because I live in Australia, so I don't have access. But yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see how they go. I have a weird feeling that I don't think they're going to win gold.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone knows, but I think it was Paredes picked up a straight red card in the last game. Do Spain play again between now and Olympics? Does that carry forward to international tournaments, or is that only a European thing?
I think it might just be a UEFA thing.
It should be. I don't see why it would be anything more than just.
But they do play Belgium tomorrow. So
Okay, so she can serve that and be done. Cool. Lovely. Next group. We went from one to the other. So probably the best game of the World Cup to view was Japan dismantling Spain. And we get to see it again in the groups here. Cody, don't give me that look. It was a dismantling, and you have to agree with me because everyone was shocked. But another one of those
I
teams.
never said it wasn't a dismantling. I disagree that it was the best game to watch at the World Cup.
Probably the most, I would say one of the most exciting teams to watch at the World Cup was Japan. The way they played, the way they moved the ball was insane. Again, if you're new to international women's football and for whatever reason you didn't see Japan play at the World Cup, go find a replay of some of their games because it was absolutely special. A lot of these girls now play in, or they still do, but play in England. A few of them have moved to the NWSL. There's a few in France. What excites you about this Japanese team to see what they can do this second time on the international stage, Michelle? Do you see them going any further than what they did at the World Cup? And do they still bring that same spark and surprise people? Or is it that kind of cool, we've seen it done, we know how to stop it?
No, I think they'll still have a really good tournament. They'll definitely put on a show. They're very quick, very technical, and I think that's always going to be hard to beat. So I think, any team who goes up against them is really going to have to be on their A game and really going to have to know what they have to do against them. And I just sorry, I lost my train of thought. I think that will be a fun team to beat. I don't know how far they'll go in the tournament exactly, but I think they'll do very well.
I think this is the other group, Cody, that sees that third place team potentially go through, depending on results. There could be a whole heap of draws here that could throw things to the wayside. But are there any players in particular that spark your interest here, or as a team, what are your thoughts on this Japanese team going towards the Olympics?
Look, players, I think we remember Hinata Miyazawa. I know she hasn't had the best record at Man United between the World Cup and now, but there are certain players out there that do just love stepping up for their national team, so I'm hoping she can kind of be that person at the Olympics as well. But just in general, I think Japan traditionally, they're a side that never have a lot of big names or standout players that are like out there, best in the world, that you just kind of know and follow. But as a team, as a collective, and it probably speaks more to general Japanese culture, they do come together very well and they do play a very, very exciting brand of football. I know there's other nations in this group that are very, very strong. I think Japan could still go into this group and make a statement. I wouldn't be surprised if they top the group. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it's just Spain that gets ahead of them. But they're definitely going to have something to say in this tournament. I think the only thing with groups that are of this high quality, teams take enough points off each other that even the third place team probably doesn't have enough to get through, just simply because they were dealt a bad card. But I think Japan are probably going to be, at least from my point of view, outside looking in, they're probably one of the stronger teams in this group for me.
100%. Throwing it straight back to you with Nigeria, we saw them. Is it safe to say they dismantled us at the World Cup? I would dare say so. That was kind of the turning point in the Matildas kind of World Cup, was that loss to Nigeria. I don't think anyone's going to sleep on this Nigerian team this time around. But what do you look forward to seeing this Nigerian team back on the pitch, Cody? And are they the kind of mover and shaker in that squad, in this group, alongside that Japan, even Brazil there as well? Like, between those three, if you put Spain out in front, it's going to be an absolute fight for that second spot.
Yeah, I think we all learnt the hard way that you can't underestimate Nigeria. I understand it's a tough group, but then again, the World Cup group they went into was a tough group as well. Tough group as well. Mixing up my words, I do apologise. You've got a striker in Asisat Oshoala who you give her one or two chances a game, she will score. Similar to who Hannah Wilkinson can be for New Zealand, but someone didn't want to call her up. But no, I think they're definitely going to have something to say in this group. I don't know if compared to the other three, they'll do enough to be able to get themselves out of the group, but I'd be surprised if they're not going to go through this tournament and get 0 points and crash out and just offer nothing to this tournament. They'll have something to say. They'll cause an upset or two here or there. They could definitely sneak in third. They could probably even sneak in second. Top of the group may be a bit too much to ask for. I think out of the 4 sides, they're probably on the lower end of the quality. But they're going to have something to say in this tournament. I think that's probably clear as day.
Michelle, I would say it was a surprise to everybody that didn't know the Nigerian team that they made it out of the groups at the World Cup. Is this another circumstance of can they do it again? And is it a consistency thing, or do you reckon the World Cup may have been a one-off and it'll be a struggle this time around?
No, I think Nigeria is a very good team. I think they will be pretty solid, a pretty difficult team. So, I mean, I think on paper they should be fine. Like what we've seen from them in the World Cup, what we've seen from them just in general, they're always pretty decent. And the games that I had to watch a lot of their games during the World Cup because they had a lot of them in Brisbane. So yeah, they're a very interesting team to watch. Really fun. So I think overall they'll be pretty decent. In a different way to Japan, where Japan's very quick and technical, I think Nigeria is very fast, but a bit more flary, I think. Maybe not as technical. So, yeah, I think they'll be decent. I think people need to stop underestimating these African teams. I think people don't understand, like, how good some of these teams actually are.
Yeah. Stacked with players playing at a very high level, and will keep proving us wrong until we talk about them the right way. Probably the international swan song of Mata coming up for this Brazilian team. This is probably... You can't ever knock down Brazilian football, but is this the team in this group that you kind of look at in the way of, will they make it out of the groups? Probably not. Will they cause upsets? Most likely. But do you think this Brazilian squad can emulate some absolute magic and go on a hero's run to send kind of Marta off on a high to end her career, Cody?
Look, they can. I don't know if they will. I'd put them in the same category as maybe Canada, where they're coming off the back of an underwhelming World Cup. They're in a bit of a transitional period, and this will be their first major tournament kind of going into that period. So once again, you are going to get a bit of teething issues. You add that into the fact that they've got a very, very tough group. That's where probably issues do lie a little bit. I think I don't think they're in a position where they're ready to like make a big statement at a major tournament. I think it has been a little while since Brazil have done that, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I think if you look at Japan and Spain, they probably have that little bit added quality, and Nigeria's going to throw an upset in there as well. It'll be a tough ask for them. I don't want to be the person that counts them out before they do go on a stupidly good run. But yeah, I don't know if that's where I'd place my faith at this very minute.
Will Brazil prove Cody wrong, Michelle? What do you reckon?
Probably not, to be honest. Yeah, I do enjoy this Brazil team. I just don't think that they have the same sort of flair that they might have once had. Just a quick side note, I find it so funny that in the graphic that you've made, like how many players only use like one name.
Yeah.
And I just find it very entertaining. But yeah, I think, I don't know, it's fine. Like as a team, like they've got great players. I just don't know if they're, a podium place team.
It's not that wow factor on paper that you kind of are used to if you followed the men's side of football for a while, where you kind of look at it and you go, oh crap, there's some top to tail stacked with names. There's still names here, but it's not. I wouldn't say it jumps off the page.
I'd argue as well that the men's side is also not like got a wow factor. Like they've got decent players, but they're just not a very good team.
Yeah,
And I think I mean, look, this could be a federation problem. Like, it could just be, an issue that, like that features the whole federation, where they are just not, developing players properly, or not finding the right coaches for the team. It could be anything, but yeah, this team will be fine, but probably not what you expect from Brazil.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this show. We are going to do our predictions next week, which will be the week before the Olympics start. So give us another week of watching potential injuries and things like that to come up so we can make informed decisions, so we don't look like complete idiots at the end of the World Cup. If you followed us, look, how many times have I said that already? Oh my God. Olympics. If you were around for our A-League predictions, you would know that we are terrible at them. So stay tuned for that. That'll be super fun. We will be back to our weekly schedule moving here on out, and then we're going to throw in a little mix when the Matildas start playing during the World Cup. Now, we do have holidays coming up. I believe Michelle is leaving us after the group stages, so we're going to make do with what we can. You might see Cody and I holding down the fort with some special guests, but we will keep you updated. The best place to follow us is on Instagram. So if you're not already, find us at Talking Tillies. We have just passed 1,300 followers, guys. It has been an insane 2 weeks since the last episode. We've gained nearly doubled in size. So welcome all the new members of the squad. We love you. Thank you for joining us. And we'll be back next week with our final preview episode of the Olympics. Goodbye.